Apologies, I didn't have the video turned on when I first started to draw this, so I've drawn just this closest small Doric styled column. I thought this was a nice little subject, this little side entrance to a neoclassical building for a 10 or so minute daily drawing exercise. A good chance just to both focus on our perspective, but also the challenge of the staircases on each side of this entranceway. They're going to be probably, for most of us, the most challenging part to draw, particularly because the ground level is not even. The ground is sloping down, and remember, any ground slope angles do not follow any perspective rules. They're not part of the perspective framework for this viewing position of this building. So we need to simply observe them carefully and draw what we see, which is exactly the same thing we can do for the perspective angles if we want. I'm never drawing vanishing points, even on the page, let alone off the page, though I do visualize sometimes where they might meet to help me just work out an angle more accurately. But it still is an approximate thing. As I said, I'm just visualizing. Now I'm looking to see where these columns align with each other, top and bottom. And I notice that the bases of the column on the right and the pilaster on the left of the first column that I've drawn are actually just below the front one. It would have been easy to assume that they're all level, but in fact, eye level is slightly below the base of the columns. There is no actual line, I don't think, on eye level there, although perhaps one of the treads on the steps at the front there does happen to line up with eye level. And so with this entablature over the portico, this is, I think, one of the key things. We want to make sure that as all of these horizontal lines, some of which are very close together, get higher and higher, getting higher and higher away from eye level, that the angle increases with each one. So we get this continuous fan pattern being created as one end of the line lifts up higher than the other end with each line. And yet, particularly when we have a lot of lines to create the effect, the three-dimensional effect that we want to create, it's easy for the entire thing to become too high. We still don't want an entablature that ends up being half as high again, visually, in our drawing than what we have in the reference, simply because we haven't drawn our lines close enough together. But equally, if we leave too many of the lines out to avoid that happening, we can end up with a rather two-dimensional looking structure. So working out where to put this last column, you can see I'm putting a few dots to indicate where the key elements of that window will be. And that just helps me position where the left side of that column is. And now I'm aligning the top of the column with the pilaster on the other side. And as long as I've drawn that pilaster accurately, I can reference from it with this column on the other side. And this is why I keep saying the very first elements we draw, if we take more time to observe and to position them carefully, have careful marks and lines that we use, then we can use them as a measuring point, reference point, all throughout the drawing. And it really speeds up the drawing as we go. And it doesn't just speed up the time in which it takes to draw, it increases our confidence because we can more easily put more marks with greater accuracy, without fear, without worry, without uncertainty. And that adds to confidence, and confidence always shows up as a positive thing in our line work, just as a lack of confidence creates lines that end up either being very stiff and wooden or very trembling and shaky, or simply lines that change direction halfway through. So anything that leads to confidence is a great thing. And so continuing with this entablature, and then there is this overhanging cornice that comes off it. I don't always draw these with as much dedication to the actual accuracy of the architecture, because usually there's a lot more decorative elements that I'm focused on. But in this case, this relatively simple porch roof is one of the main visual effects. So getting the angles correct and getting the stacking of these similarly shaped sections on top of each other, I think, is quite important. So having done that for better or for worse, now I'm coming in underneath to get the underside done. And then we can do the other detail on the front of the wall and the steps as well. There is a point where we will move into double time after 10 minutes of drawing, so I'll try and remember to tell you when that is, but it's basically when we've done the steps on the lower left-hand side of our porch. Once I've outlined those, you'll probably notice the speed pick up, but there's really not much to draw after that. And if you're finding this interesting and helpful, please hit the like button for me. That really helps me and my channel, and I would greatly appreciate that. It's something you can do for me. I'm drawing this with a 0.3 millimeter pen. So it's a reasonably heavy line, particularly because I'm drawing fairly slowly with it. The speed with which we draw with a pen has as much to do with how thick the line looks as the width of the nib, within reason. And so we need to bear that in mind when we choose the most appropriate pen. So just doing some of the paneling on the doors. I didn't overly want to get too involved with the doorway, and maybe I should have done some hatching, actually, some light hatching, just to represent the colour. In fact, if I were drawing this again, I would, and I'd just do that in the double time part of the video, but I didn't think of it. I did do some hatching though for the underside of this roofing part. And this is where we need to take enough effort to not cross our lines over parts that are in, well, I was going to say in full sunlight, but parts that simply we don't want that hatching, we don't want that value on. And so we must be getting pretty close to the 10 minutes, because I'm now starting to come down with the steps. And I'm looking at the space that I've got, and I'm thinking, well, there's 3 steps to draw between here and the bottom section of this upper part of the stand that the columns are on. And then there's a couple of steps past that, but the bottom step, the ground is sloping down towards us, which changes slightly how it is. It also changes the alignment on the lowest step on the left-hand side with the lowest step on the right-hand side, because I actually didn't notice until I'd drawn it that the step on the right-hand side, there's an extra step to allow for the drop in ground level. And I was trying to align them up exactly, and they didn't. And I thought it was just that I'd been inaccurate. But at some point I realized that No, the problem is that the ground level has changed. Again, careful observation can keep us from falling over as we draw. So we're in double time now. Well, this could be time and 3/4 rather than double time. So, but made a few things not quite right on those steps, a few places where I lost whether I was drawing a tread or a rise, whether I was drawing the horizontal part of the step that we tread on, or whether I was drawing the vertical part of the tread, which rather self-explanatory in its name is called the rise. So I do that window and get the end of the building in. There's just this window above the door, so I put that in. I want to do that overhanging cornice. I'll just do a few indications of some stonework, but I don't want to get caught up in that, and I don't really have time for that. I'll finish the lower part of the support for this porch, the sort of more foundational part. And this is where I got a bit confused with what step I was drawing and what it aligned with on the left-hand side. So there's a few awkward lines there. And now just do this top part. And I did mess this up a bit in that I should have, as I came down, just not drawn these lines as long as the first one. So now I've had to go the other way to extend it. Anyway, that's it. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this interesting. If you haven't hit the like button by now, please help me out. But I hope more so that you give a go drawing this, and you'll find it on my channel community page. So why not? Daily drawing practice for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes is an excellent way to lay a foundation that we then build on day by day in small increments. And we don't have to tackle everything at once. We can just focus on one skill area, one subject area. But hey, whatever you end up drawing, for whatever purpose, for whatever length of time, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.